Good evening and welcome Neeraj Bhai on this interesting session, Water Stories of Rajasthan, on the page of Tawarikh Khwani. Now, this normally Tawarikh Khwani does hosting of interesting topics related to history and similar stuff, and it's very unusual topic for Tawarikh Khwani. But we thought it's very important to highlight that one of the historically most important state of India, Rajasthan, which is known worldwide for its beautiful forts, monuments, and stories of brave Rajputs and brave Rajas. Interestingly, when we study and when we look at Rajasthan, we find that not only Udaipur, which is called the city of lakes, entire Rajasthan is a state of lakes. So when I start my journey from Delhi to Rajasthan, I find a lake called Silly Said in Alwar. In Rajasthan, you got this big Mansagar lake. Then you go to Ajmer, you got these Anasagar lake, you got Pushkar lake. You keep moving in Rajasthan, you got city of lakes, Udaipur. Then this, I think 3-4 months back when I was in Jaisalmer, I found this beautiful Garhsisar lake. I mean, full with water, full with life, full with stories. Not only that, at the top of a mountain called Mount Abu, I found a beautiful lake called Nakki Lake, and it has got historical relevance. It is mentioned in ancient Indian religious texts in Vedas and all. Now, and just about every city, you got Rajsaman Lake. In fact, something very interesting. You got inside Rajasthan, you got just between Jaipur and Rajasthan, you got a lake which is salt-producing lake called Shakambari. Again, it has got huge mention in historical texts. So the entire story of Rajasthan has got a very beautiful dimension of water. In fact, while reading about Rajasthan, I came to know that there is a very beautiful lake called Foy Sagar Lake. Between Foy Sagar Lake, named after a British officer who had got it constructed during a famine in I think 19th century, early 19th century. So we thought, with your help today, we will take. We'll like to listen to the stories of water. Before we start, I would like to give a small introduction of Neeraj Doshi, my dear friend. We met for the first time, I think, around 20 years back. When we were doing our MBA, Masters in Business Administration in Devi Ahilya University in Indore.
Yes.
After that, I started my career in corporate, and today I am doing a lot of things in various areas. And I ended up turning into a storyteller about trees. Today I am doing stories of trees kind of walks. Neeraj, after doing his MBA and some work, he left for his second master's from Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Tufts University, Boston, where he had done his second master's in International Environment Resource Policy and Sustainable Development and Developmental Economics. After returning from US, Neeraj started a concern called Research, Advocacy and Innovation in Water, which translates into rainwater. And apart from this, one of the most famous work of Neeraj is creation of some beautiful walks in Rajasthan, in Jaipur, which are called Heritage Water Walks, about which we'll talk. So, from the journey of an MBA in business administration to a storyteller about water, Neeraj has lived good life, a multidimensional personality, and wonderful storyteller. So today, Neeraj Bhai, welcome. So I would like to start in this small session with my request to you to take us through the water civilization of Rajasthan. So when I hear about Rajasthan, it is said that once upon a time it used to be a sea. It is also mentioned that around Suratgarh and that area, perhaps the mythical river Saraswati used to flow, and all of a sudden those big sources of water, and I mean, the Sagar simply evaporated, and this entire big stretch of land got converted into a desert. And from desert, Rajasthan is resurrected beautifully into a state of lakes. Please take us through the journey of Rajasthan with reference to water.
Thank you, Qasim bhai. It's such a pleasure to speak to you regarding something which is dear to both of us, water. Of course, after moving back from states, I ventured into water. Just to add to kind of a bit of my introduction, I am a 17th generation Registani. Registani means someone from desert, a person from desert. My 16 generations before have been born and lived and died in desert. So it won't be far-fetched to say that in addition to blood, there is water flowing in my veins, which is true in both what you call metaphorically and literally. But water actually drew me back from US to India. Actually, I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to explore. So Rajasthan, as you mentioned it during your introduction, that water civilization. Indeed, when you juxtapose Rajasthan, a desert, with water as a water civilization, it is confusing, confounding. But imagine, you also mentioned about a couple of lakes there. Let me sort of, go to that. But just to add here, there are almost more than 3,000 water bodies, including lakes, stepwells, and ponds. And we'll talk about it as we move further in our conversation in Rajasthan. And all of them are man-made. There is only one perennially flowing river in Rajasthan, which is in the southern part of Rajasthan near Kota Chambal. And there is 8 to 9 month seasonal rain called Luni in Jodhpur, which is now reduced to maybe a couple of months, right? Now, how did human beings came to live in Rajasthan, and why Rajasthan is so unique? First let's touch about it. There are many deserts in the world. Middle East. We talk about Saudi Arabia. We talk about Iran, Persia. All ancient civilizations. There are deserts. What is so unique about Rajasthan? So let me put things into context over here. There are 25 deserts in the world, including cold and tundra deserts, hot weather deserts. Thar Desert, which is 70% of Rajasthan, and 30% of Thar is in Pakistan after India became Pakistan in 1947, is 17 biggest. The area it covers is 2,000 square kilometers, right? But what sets this desert apart from all other deserts or these kind of sparsely populated areas is the population density. That is, people living within the desert. While there is 1 person per square mile living in Sahara, which is the biggest desert in the world, 900 square miles, there are 143 persons per square mile living in Thar. Now, the only difference separation would be the capacity or ingenuity or understanding the technological know-how to store water. Because without water, you will die. And desert as such does not allow a lot of vegetation to grow. So everything has sprung from water. There is one aspect to the technological aspect, that how human beings have sort of, lived. What happened to those group of people who chose to live in the most harsh climate of all, in desert? They must be stuck. There must be some tyranny they must be going through. They couldn't leave. So there are two aspects to it. One is the physical aspect. One is the metaphysical aspect. The physical aspect, we will come to it. The metaphysical aspect, which is all about, we talk about the spirituality, the God, the connect, and having the privilege to be in touch with them and having their hand on our head. I would like to share a beautiful story to start our conversation. And this is the story about the beginning of this state, Rajasthan. As people would be knowing, Lord Krishna is the presiding deity of this desert state. Now, a couple of thousand years back, when Mahabharata happened, Mahabharata was an 18-day war. And Krishna, after the end of the war, was riding back to his state in Dwarka, which is in the current Gujarat state. And his chariot passed through a desert, which is today's Rajasthan, Thar Desert, right? There's a mountain which he saw, which was Tirkut Mountain. And like his sudden glance went up to the top of the mountain, and he saw a person sitting there. He was amused. Why would someone come over here and live here? Why would anybody choose to be in this place? So he asked the chariot to be stopped, and he walked up to the top of the mountain, Tirkut. And to his surprise, he found a very famous sage, Mahamuni Uttum, sage Uttum, sitting there deep in meditation. Well, Krishna's confusion knows no bound. He taps on the shoulder of the person and say, if you are meditating for me, I am here. Ask what you want. I am going to give you a boon. I am so happy. The sage opens his eyes and looks up to the Krishna, and he's happy that his hard work, his long, deep meditation has resulted in God appearing before him. Krishna says, I'm happy. Ask what you want. Sage says, what will I want for myself? I have already left material life. I want something for this place. Krishna looks around and says, there's nothing around. There's no animal, no vegetation, no human being. It's scorching heat. It's sand as far as you can look. What would you want for this place? And back comes his reply, I want water for this place. And Krishna is surprised. He's lost completely. What exactly are you asking, man? You have a boon. You can ask material wealth for yourself, for your people, where you come from. You can ask thousands of animals, gold jewelry, whatever. Why water for this God-forsaken place? The sage says, this is my will, this is my request. If you want to offer me a boon, please do that. Otherwise, you can be on your way and I'll go back to my meditation. Well, the boon has been offered. God cannot go back on it. He says, Tathastu, so be it. Now, this is a small story in the heart of the people of Rajasthan, but this also provides us the backbone of the strength that no matter what, we will figure out a way to survive. That means we'll figure out a way to survive and find water. And no matter how, Rajasthan has evolved into a beautiful civilization. You talk about its cuisine, you talk about its art, you talk about its music form. Everything is beautiful, everything is famous. You meet someone and you say, I want to travel to India, or within India, I want to travel to which state should I travel? Go to Rajasthan. It's beautiful. What is beauty about it? There is no water. There's no natural vegetation. And that's what we are going to talk about it. Thank you, Qasim bhai. Let's move to something very beginning, the technology of this thing. What are different kind of technology which were there for us to make our life happy over here, most prosperous over here, and which are still relevant for the world that we are living in right now. This is Garcisar Lake, right? And as you could see, the desert full of water people. And Qasim bhai briefly talked about Garcisar Lake. Let me give you a bit of the information about this lake. The lake was made by the king of Jaisalmer, Rao Jaisalmer, 1967. And we are in 2020. It's in the middle of the desert. The lake, the size of the lake is 3 miles across 1 mile, right? The catchment of this, from where it fetches water, is 400 square kilometers, right? This is gigantic we are talking here. But the most beautiful or shocking part is this lake has never dried in its entire life. Imagine a water body in the middle of desert where the temperature normally climb up to 50 degrees in a state called Jaisalmer, where the total rain days in 365 days are 10, right? On a good day, on a good year, rain year. And you have this water body which has never ever dried. It has to be given to the ingenuity of the people, the understanding of the geology, understanding of the land, and plus the mana from the God that we can figure it out. That's a beautiful part. That's Garcisar Lake for you. Another beautiful aspect is Taka. Taka is a tank. It's an underground tank, couple of deep feet below, maybe 20 feet, 45 feet, depending on the catchment. It's an artificial water storage system. What basically is done is you create a sloping catchment and slopes towards a excavated part, which is a tank, and you line inside with lime and mortar, right, which allows water to continue remain cool and disinfected. And whenever rain falls, all the water in the catchment automatically flows towards this tank and gets stored in it. It has a narrow opening to withdraw water from it. Usually people have private tanks. If they are a bigger house, they have it in their courtyard or in nearby area. But if there's a public tank, it is in the panchayat or a village land, which is designated for such purposes and which is created for such purposes. It's a beautiful thing. Most of the part of the Western Rajasthan, if you travel, you will find tanks abound. And it usually provides water to 7-8 months. And if a tank is deeper with a bigger catchment, it can often provide water for a year for 6-7 people. This is a beautiful part, Khadin. As you can see in the image, there's a water spread across, which looks like a agriculture land. Well, it is true. This is an agriculture land, and Khadin is an innovation of Paliwal Brahmins. And Paliwal Brahmins are usually attached to the name Kuldhara, which is a village outside Jaisalmer. So they invented it in Jaisalmer. Now, what is Khadin? Khadin is nothing but when you have a sloping catchment area or sloping land, you create a bund or a formal wall or embankment around it where the water escapes, and you don't allow water to escape. You collect that water. It becomes a temporary artificial lake, which spreads across a couple of miles, right? Now, you don't withdraw water from it. You allow water seepage, which goes into the aquifer, right? When the water completely dries out, it leaves a marshy land full with mineral and moisture, right? You need for cultivation, you need minerals, lot of minerals, sand and moisture, right? You drop your seeds in it and you grow one crop out of it without doing anything. The water that seeps into the land from this khadin, right, emerges from the subterranean in the subterranean water bodies like ponds, lakes, wells, step wells, right? Now the same water which was collected over here and which left moisture in khadin comes out in these other subterranean water bodies and can be used for drinking purpose, for other sundry purpose in the village, and also for the cultivation. So essentially, through this innovation, you can grow true crops in same amount of in same body of water. This is Nadi. Nadi is again a type of a pond, but it is basically created and bundled around in a deeper part of a land where water naturally flows. You excavate it further and you create a lake around it. And Nadi, Tal, Tarai, they are all names spoken in a different part, and usually the name differ because of the area of the water body. Right? This is again somewhere around it came into existence in the middle of the 16th century in Jodhpur, and in Jodhpur, Bikaner, Barmer, Nagaur, a lot of that you will find nadis. This is Kui. This is a very unique phenomena only in Rajasthan. Kui is you can say a female version.
Before you go to Kui, Neeraj bhai, I would want to know, is Bandhi Kui named after these kind of structures only?
Yeah, Bandhi Kui, Dera Ka Kui Ka Baas, lot of these names. And I'm glad you brought forth this question. You would notice any name in Rajasthan ending with Sar, S-A-R, which means Sarovar, which means lake.
Yeah.
The city is named after the water body in that water body in that place, right? So if there are 2,000 Sar, all of them have water bodies. And I can go on listing Lunkaran Sar, Megra Sar, Padam Sar, Alsi Sar, Jetkaran Sar, endless Sar. And the ultimate
Sar is equivalent to one big nice town.
No, it could be village, it could be town, but Sar is Sarovar. So if it has a water body in it, it would usually take its name from that water body, and it denotes that it have water.
Right.
It all says in its name, right? But you can understand, if I keep my city name based on a water body, how important that water body is to me, right? So the ultimate Sar is Amritsar. For one particular religion, Sikhs, this is the center of existence. Amritsar is the water body of nectar.
Right.
So that's there. Now coming back to Queens.
Yeah.
These queens are designed because of a certain kind of topography in the land. In Western Rajasthan, which is Shekhawati region, Churu, Jhunjhunu, Sikar, there is a layer of gypsum rock that passes underneath the sandy tract, couple of 100 feet below, or maybe 100, 90, 80, 100 feet below. When the water falls in that region, it is not able to escape into the aquifer. Why? Because the layer of rock, right? Now, there are three types of water according to people in Rajasthan. There is Palar Pani. Palar is sky. So, sky water, which is rain. Then there is Patal Pani, which is the aquifer, underground aquifer, in which the rainwater seeps into, right? That's Patal Pani. And then third type of Pani, which is not usually known as such anywhere else, is Rejani Pani. Reja means sand. The water locked in sand. Now, what happens basically when this water falls and it is not able to seep into the aquifer, the water spreads into the sandy tract as humidity.
Okay.
Now, to withdraw this water, and this is, you're talking about, very salty underground aquifer, and you need to survive, you need fresh drinking water, right? So you need to capture this rainwater. Now, to do this, you design these narrow tube-like structures which are dropped maybe 5 to 15, 20 meters into the ground, perpendicular, and the width is, the diameter is very small, right? What happens when you create this kind of fracture in the land in this way, kind of an injection, the low pressure forces the humidity to draw towards itself and it converts into water. So each koi can deliver in a day maybe 10 to 15 buckets of water, which is good for a family. Now you would, in this photograph, you can see a lot of koi. So they could be private by due permission from the village head or village government. They could be public, right? And multiple koi come, and with a water body around it becomes a par, PAAR. So multiple koi system is known as a par. So here you.
Neeraj bhai, sorry, I'm interrupting you. I have also heard that there are queens based on caste.
Yes. So see, casteism is very deep rooted in our culture, and you know, since these water bodies can be private, including the lakes, wells, right?
Yeah.
So there are separation. People from usually the lower caste, right? Then they are not allowed. But since it's a very interlocked system, you may not allow them into your system, but you still need them. So they live in surrounding areas, which is, I mean, I would say is a very sad thing, and they have their own. So you can build your own. You have your land.
So you're saying every community has their own queens?
As their own, absolutely. Yeah. But during the time of drought, all these artificial walls break down, and we survive on the communal system. So even so, for instance, if there is a scarcity or a drought going on, and a private well has water or private koi has water, it will be thrown open to all the people.
Okay.
So just want to add an anecdote over here. Rajasthan is scarce, very little water. But if you are ever lost in Rajasthan, you will be assured by default, if you knock on any door, you will be offered water. We have learned it very hard way. Having no water means certain death.
Yeah.
We would not reject anyone for water ever. Now coming to another water system, Johar is another. It's a kind of a lake. This is a lake wherein it's a dug and a high wall or embankment is created around it to store the water. Usually, it is done commonly as a common property in a village. And these johars provide water for irrigation, for animals, and for drinking, and for bathing and for washing year round. One particular organization which made Johar famous again is Tarun Bharat Sangh of Rajendra Singh Ji, which actually revived a river in near Alwar Aravari. They built 8,400 johars. Johar is nothing but creating a check dam. So stopping water, collecting water, and allowing the seepage of water into subterranean. So it spreads across the underground currents, and it results into greenery, better cultivation, better soil fertility, and the water in the river.
Right.
So that is a famous story. Now, Johar.
Yeah.
So these are a couple of things. There are many others. There are, changing the names of the place, Bawlis, Well, Jhalara. There are many such things. I can't cover all of these in this thing, but I hope you would be encouraged after this conversation to do more research or maybe visit Rajasthan.
Yeah, I will sure. So now, we will talk about Bawdis in a separate way, because Bawdis are extremely beautiful. Monument of water, I would say. They are the best representative of Rajasthan in its totality. They are splendid, beautiful, magnificent structure made in celebration of water. So therefore, the two most important thing, the royalty, the great art and the design, and water, everything gets combined. We'll talk about Bawdis in a separate question. One question I wanted to ask you. So there is a place. So once I was doing some study about various types of lakes and water bodies and Bawdis. I came to know about a lake. I had known a lot of sars, as you rightly said, that like places which are sar basically are meant, are named after water bodies, just like Amritsar is on water body of made of Amrit. Similarly, so I was very inquisitive because somebody told me there is a place called Bhab village, and I was under the impression that perhaps this is named after vapors. I do not know. It is named after the vapors, or it is named after the Bhab, the elder, the Babji who made it. So tell us
Yes.
something about the Bhab or Bab Baudi or Bab water body, which is very famous in Rajasthan.
I mean, I'm glad this is something which is, kind of again common, and it is very, very representative of how people believe and live with water and live in water and everything around water. This is a
Yeah.
story of a village called Bap, which is, I think, 100 or 95 odd kilometers away from Jodhpur. Bap is kind of a derived name from Bhap. Bhap is the English meaning of Bhap is steam,
Yeah.
humidity.
Yeah.
So this is the photo of Bhap Lake, Bhap village, and there is a lake in Bhap village. Again, the same thing. A place is where people are living. It will definitely have a water body, man-made water body. Now, this is a very unique story. So this place, which is a village now, and which has become a tehsil, right? A kind of a next level, of bigger version of a village,
In which district is this Bhab village?
Jodhpur.
Jodhpur. Okay.
Right? So, couple of 100 years back, this was a non-fertile land, right? Mostly used by people or shepherds for grazing. So there was this herder known as Megha. Megha is also means cloud in English. He used to come to this place, which is now a village, for to bring his animal for grazing. It was a grazing land, and he would come over here one day when he was here, and after he like as in the evening when he was taking his animals back home, he had some water left in his water bottle, and out of some whim, he dug a small ditch and poured that water into that ditch and covered that ditch with leaves. I don't know why, but maybe he didn't know why, but he just did it. For next couple of days, he was not able to come to this same place. After 3 days, when he visited this thing, he identified that this is the same place where I dug a ditch. And so he rushed to check what has happened to that place. He removed the leaves, and suddenly, as the wind flew, he felt humidity. He was astonished to see that a place of Rajasthan, which is like this place, which has a temperature around 45, 50 degree or 119 degree, for those who understand Fahrenheit, 110, 119 degree Fahrenheit, it still has humidity. That means this place can store water, right? He had this idea. He went back home, and next day, fully committed, he came back with digging utensils, digging auzar to dig a lake out of it. For next 12 years, this guy Megha, every single day, he committed himself to digging a lake. 12 years, his health failed, he died. And he finished the lake almost, but was not finished completely. His wife joined in, his brothers, other people who saw his dedication, his commitment to making this lake, they joined in, and they eventually built this lake known after his name, Megrasar. This lake, when it is full, is 4 miles long and 1 mile wide.
So the original name of this Bab Baudi or Bab village is Megrasar.
Yeah, the lake name is still Megrasar, and the village that came about because the idea is from Bhab, humidity. The place people eventually settled named this place after that first instance Bhab, which in the last 400 years has eventually modified into Bab.
Okay.
And if in the image you see two canopies, one is a canopy, other is a cenotaph. Cenotaph in respect to the person who built this Megrasar, and as a canopy in respect to the wife who devoted her life towards water as well. She did not commit, she was not sad, she didn't do any, she moved to another place, she continued the work. That's mind-blowing. I mean, even to me, whose family and generations have come from Rajasthan.
Yeah, great, wonderful. So the Bhab, so there is a village in the which has been named after the vapors, huh? Bhab.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very, very fascinating. Now, in fact, now I'm not surprised because so many villages named after Sar, so many villages named after ponds and kuas, queens. I think the nearest to Delhi is this Bandi Kui, which we know our train stops when we go. The beautiful small is there. Now, tell me, what are the other aspects of life which has got impacted? I see various art forms various musical forms, and food. Everything has got an impression and or has been impacted by water in its design and its creation and it's in many forms. So can you please take us through the water impact on various cultural aspects of Rajasthan, especially the art forms?
Yeah, happy to. This is the fun part. This is absolutely, I love it. In fact, it is not the impact for everything that we do over here. The core, if you look deep enough, there'll be water.
Yeah,
In fact, my question would be, where would these valiant kings be if there was no water?
correct.
Let's come to this next part. For us, water is a celebration over here. And I have purposefully juxtaposed two pictures right in front of you. Towards my left is the picture of a lake in Pushkar, right? And towards my right is the modern scenario of water pipes in a building. Now, towards left is life around water. For us, modern people, water has translated into a binary that if I don't drink water, I will die. So I need to private. But water has lots of life in it. We have hidden water in the walls behind, and all
Correct.
the water is not seen, right? But over
Yeah,
here, celebrate water. So if you could look at this photograph of Pushkar, there are schools, there are hotels, there are dharamshalas, there are temples. Everything, people are frolicking, people are having fun, bathing. Everything is around water. So for us, water is a celebration.
yeah,
Let's come to art form or textiles and fabrics, right? Which is one of the biggest gift to world from Rajasthan are the fabrics. So, you know, tie and dye technique, the block prints, they have been exported globally and people know Rajasthan one for it. Lahiriya has one such tie and dye technique, which is wherein you tie a fabric and you dye it. So the dyed part remains uncolored and the dyed comes out. And when you unfurl it or open it, it creates a beautiful pattern. One such pattern from this tie and dye technique is Lahiriya. Now, that Lahiriya is a Rajasthani word, but the literal translation of Lahiriya is wave-like, like wave. And if you look at the fabric to my right, is if it appears like wave, and the women who's enjoying a swing together with a friend, they both of them are wearing Lahiriya in the festival of Tej, which is celebrated at the onset of monsoon. In fact, to celebrate monsoon. Now imagine Rajasthan has not been gifted with any kind of natural water bodies. So we will not see lakes. But what we are doing with wearing these kind of lakes, imagine a sea of women wearing lahariya. It can give you an illusion of water flowing.
yeah,
So what we lack in nature, we have created it abundance in our life and living systems.
yeah,
Another is our earnestness towards a God that comes so hard that waves starts to flow in our region and we have sufficient water. Because
yeah,
from water will come everything. From water we will go fodder for animals, food for ourselves. We can sell that food in market to get another thing, clothes for house. Everything starts from water. So this is Lahariya. Now dance forms. Now there are two beautiful dance forms which I want to mention about. I mean there are multiple out there. As you transition from one place to another, there will be different forms. But these have have a global impact. Toward my left is Bhavai. Towards my right is Chari. You will see a lot of women holding a Chari. Chari is basically a brass pot. And in Bhavai dance form, women are carrying pot on top of their head, but they are made of terracotta. Right? Now, why is this dance form and how has it evolved? Now, the job of fetching water for the household falls squarely on women's shoulder. Women will walk kilometer, half a mile to a water place, maybe a well, a step well, or a water plane to bring water back. And how would they carry in small pitchers these holding these pots on top of their head? And those who have become master of this whole art, they can carry multiple tops on their heads to avoid multiple runs. Now, as the women from multiple in a particular suburb, they would go together. And during this whole journey of bringing water and back, they would bring water back, but they would balance water on their head. The whole dance form is about poise, all about the finesse of women moving around. And this actually translates into women who can imagine if you're carrying a water pot on your head, you cannot look down. So you
yeah,
have to feel how the lay of the land is. There is a shrapnel, there is different kind of objects on the road which you have to avoid so that water does not fall down. all these things becomes a beautiful fine motion, and women become master of it, and this translates into a dance form. In cherry dance, usually women fire this pot, having an oil and this thing, and they do different variety. In Bhavai dance, women carry multiple pots. You can see this woman is carrying at least 7 pots on top of her head, and I mean, if you travel and spend enough time in the rural parts of Rajasthan, you would see women literally carrying 6 to 7 pots of water on top of their head. Heads off to these mothers and sisters and wives who have carried these water for generations to feed water to people and all those things. And heads off from these dance forms came.
Right.
Now come to Panihari music. Paniharin. Pani is water. Harin, someone, a maiden whose job is to bring water, right? So Panihari music evolved from the conversation and the sharing of day's work or stress of a group of women going to fetch water to a well, community well. Now, during this whole journey, they would share whatever day is happening or whatever is bothering them. A lot of women's men are fighting wars for the kings somewhere else to share their misery. If they're not keeping well, someone in the family, if they're not happy, all these things eventually became translated into songs. And the trinkets and the other jewelry that women wearing and walking with a head full with pitcher makes noises. Together, this noise and this conversation translated into music form, music, dance and music form, which is known as Panihari music. And the most famous aspect, it could be many things, a sad thing, a jubilant thing, a happy, excited moment thing. But the most famous aspect is of a maiden, unmarried girl, going to the well to bring water. Then there she sees a guy who's thirsty. And right. So he offers him water. And then he walks along together with this woman back to the home. And the villagers see that a man is following a woman, and they are very unhappy about it. But they don't know this guy is this woman's fiance. So this is absolute transit into music and all those things. And this is done under kind of a Maan style of folklore, which has given us the most famous song, Padharo Mare Desh. Kesariya Padharo Mare Desh. So, okay. It's a form, but this is a Panihari music. Okay. Now, let's come to from celebration to the little bit realistic aspects of how to conserve water and how to innovate life around it. Right? One thing that consumes a lot of water in our present household is cleaning wash utensils. Right? Now, how to avoid it or how to innovate around it. Now, you can see this guy is cleaning utensil using sand, but this is more of a kind of a derived or a more down version of it. The real version is using the charcoal ash from the wood burning, from the cooking that comes out charcoal ash, and using that charcoal ash to clean your utensils. Now, why charcoal ash? Because charcoal or carbon has highest porosity. Now, when you throw this ash on top of a plate, which has a stickiness due to oil or butter or ghee, it absorbs all the oil or ghee. And then once it absorbs, you can wipe it clean using a cloth piece. Now, to a modern Indian, from it looks a kind of a look down upon kind of activity, something more rustic, rural, uneducated kind of activity. More modern is washing, getting detergent and all. But look at the sustainability aspect of this whole activity. You use the wood burnt in your for cooking, and you recycle it by using utensils. It's a clean charcoal ash. Charcoal ash has been acknowledged as a very good detergent because it disinfects the utensil. It also cleans it. It absorbs it. Second is, whereas do you find the utility of carbon or charcoal ash in modern life? And what is the same utility is used, same quality or property of charcoal ash and absorbent is used in our modern day water filters. All our water filters come with a carbon filter.
Right.
And then you have, your toothpaste made out of active carbon, which is the same purpose that is doing, it's extracting, absorbing the impurity, or your face wash. And, we have advertisement coming, boldly announcing that this our face wash has active carbon in it. It's nothing different. Our ancestors have been knowing about it. They may not know it because through the ages, the scientificness have been lost and the tradition carried upon. But this is based on sound principle.
Okay.
Now let's come to another aspect of life, life in Rajasthan. We may have a couple of names in English for clouds, Nimbus, Cirrus, other names. How about the names for clouds in Rajasthan? Because clouds are the harbinger of water or rains, the most important element for life in Rajasthan. So they are essentially the most important element, and we wait for them year round. No wonder then we make them friends and we have conversation with them, right? The cloud names that we have over here, over more than 150, and I'm sharing some of those names over here in this image. These are all in Marwadi and different dialects in Rajasthani. Now, how these cloud names come about, and most of these cloud names have human quality to it. If a person is very, very proud, there is a name called Ghamand, which is, arrogance or Ghamand, right? A person is very jovial, funny, excited, happy. There are names for these clouds. So if a cloud depicts the same human quality, it would be given that name. Now I want to share one unique name that is there. If a small series of cloud is spread across the horizon, right? As it is like kind of dotting the entire horizon, it would look like a feather of a partridge. Now partridge is locally known as titar. Now, if you look closely at that feather of a partridge, there is a small dot spread across, like dotting the entire feather. This gives an inkling that looks like a cloud. So the name of the cloud is given aptly Titar Pankhi or partridge feather. And there are many such other names, like this. And it's funny thing that how you become friends with natural beings because you have so little people living with you. How do you remain social?
I have heard that there are stories of people talking to, because there are less people in a desert kind of space. There have been there is a literature around it wherein people have been talking, doing a monologue with running clouds and all. Is there any literature around?
There is not a very specific literature, I would say, and I would say people should take this as an interesting topic to do more literature, and there have been articles around it. But this is part of our life. In fact, I would like to briefly digress over here. When I was living in the US, I did a cross country trip from New York to Seattle, and I was driving, during, if you go past Montana, Michigan, Indiana, these are giant states, but not many people living over there. Now, if you're driving at a stretch for 100, 120, 200 miles, what do you see? A lot of hoardings, in different kind of hoardings. So I would, look at those hoardings and imagine things of life about the city that has put up this hoarding of someone, marriage is happening in the city and they have put up a hoarding that we are getting married. Everybody in the town is invited. I felt connected with these hoardings, and I would imagine someone living a herder taking his animals into, grazing and spending the day over there, maybe making friends with the tree or the animals or small bushes over there or clouds over there. It's no different.
Correct. Now, while it was wonderful to see how music, art, and crafts of Rajasthan are beautifully impacted by water, there is a lot of work happening from a very, very long time in Rajasthan around charity, around social service, and around spirituality around water. So, please shed some light on that aspect of water in Rajasthan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, how can this critical element of human survival can be left from, water touching it? There are pyau. Pyau, we call it across India. They've known it like pyau. These are essentially
words. I heard. Can you share what is the beautiful name of this lota, which is in which the pyau people are?
Yes, I will be coming to it. So this pyau basically comes across, millions of these water bodies or water huts spring across during the summer, as the summer arrives in this Indian continent, and particularly in Rajasthan, because people are traveling, they must be thirsty. So this is purely public service institution. There is no intention of making money out of it. It is generally to feed water. Now this particular pot, which is a decanter that is used to serve water, is known as Ram Jhara. Ram is Lord Ram, one of the gods in Hindu mythology, and Jhara is Jharna, like to fall, to sprinkle. So Ramjara is often used, and here in this image you would see a senior lady is offering water. Usually people who have been retired, they are engaged in these activities so they can have some social conversation as well, and plus this activity happening. Towards your right, there is this whole name of this place, Surdas Jal Mandir, the water temple of Surdas, and the operator is Vijay Lal Palwan in Jaipur. Now they have mentioned it again. Same thing. It's a job of the god. In fact, in Hindu mythology, it is said that if you offer water to anybody thirsty, human beings, animals, tree, you can bypass 1,000 births. And as per Hindu thought, Indian mythology thinking, life is an ephemeral stream. Eventually, you go through a lot of births, and eventually you become Buddha or Prophet or Ram or Krishna or Jesus. You don't come back. You achieve nirvana, right?
Right.
Imagine offering water can give you that kind of super push, fast forward of 60,000 births. That's huge.
Fast forward to Nirvana. Yeah.
Yeah, fast forward to nirvana. There's there are shortcuts in spirituality as well, right? This is one
Very good. It's a very good, very productive shortcut. It is
very productive shortcut. I have to agree.
yeah. Now I think my next question is the most important. One of the most important question regarding water. I call Bawdis, the water monuments of Rajasthan. Though we have Bawdis in Delhi and we have Bawdis in other parts also, but I do not remember, except in Gujarat, anywhere, the Bawdi is being given such a monumental, proportion and beauty and art and everything. Please take us through the most famous or most interesting, or at least some of them. I know we can't cover all of them here in the short time. Some of those beautiful Bawdis of Rajasthan.
Yeah. And as I go along, I get lost. So I have a request to you. You can stop me whenever you feel that, we are running out of time.
No, it's fine. I mean, we are on track. Time is fine. Just.
I'm glad. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I think this is the what you call monuments of Rajasthan, and such a nicely way of phrasing it, right? Monuments of Rajasthan. Can I go back before addressing this Bawdi? Can I go back to one image, right?
Yeah.
Over here. This is the photo of a water fountain in San Francisco, right? Now, how is this taken from the pure? What we have in system public service, offering water or giving water to thirsty. San Francisco in 2014 decided that we will install water fountains across the city to offer free water to avoid water wastage and plastic wastage. As many people would know, California is going through its worst drought in the century, and this is a nice way that if you offer free water, people will waste less, and if they carry their own water bottle anywhere throughout the city, they will find they have water fountain in like 50 meters, 100 meters distance, and they can fill their water bottle. This is a beautiful thing, which I think is similar to pure system, and people have sort of encouraged to adopt this system in their own way. Similarly, Paris, City of Love, went for this same thing in 2016. Anyways, I just wanted to bring to notice that this is how our systems have encouraged others in the world. We learn from each other. Now let's come to the beautiful thing called Bawdi or Steffel. And I think the Steffels have caught people's attention in last decade or so. There are many books from very known Western authors. People have written books about it. The Steffels have been unearthed. They have been restored. A lot of things have happened around Steffel, and now this is through Steffel we have sort of kind of telescope back into the life of Rajasthan, that how people used to really like they fetted water. They built structures which are not kind of pipes, but beautiful structures, finely carved architectural phenomena in this thing. One is such called Bhoot Bawdi, which is literally translated into Ghost Steffel. This is in village Ransi in Jodhpur. Again, Jodhpur in kind of 100 kilometers away from it. It has a very beautiful story attached to it, how it came to know about. So there was this Thakur, or the head of a village, Ransi, known as Jai Singh Champawat, right? They were one of the family factions of the ruling family of Jodhpur. They were living there. And around 1600s, he was once going to some fete for some official work. And as he was traveling, he was tired and he was looking for some water body to to get get water for himself and for his horse. As he was about to get some water, he saw some movement in the nearby bushes. He went there and he's noticed that there is a ghost over there. The ghost, when he saw the king, he requested, and the village head, that I am cursed and I cannot drink the water of this pond myself. Can you feed me some water? The king jovially said, all right, let me feed my horse first and then I'll come to your rescue. So after doing that, he offered the water to the ghost, and who was satiated. And he said, "Can you offer me some food from your food as well?" King was happy to share the food. Once it was done, the ghost was happy, and he invited jovially for a happy wrestling match with the king. King again accepted the invitation, and they had a duel, of wrestling duel. King won over him. The ghost said, "You have won over me. You have offered me water, your food. I am your slave forever. I will do whatever you want." The king said, "Whatever I want, will you do?" The ghost said, "Yes, it will be my your wish will be my action." He said, "I want you to build a step well, a very deep, big step well for my place, and a 7-floor palace for me and my wives, my queen." The ghost said, "I will do all of this thing, but I will not do it directly or outwardly. I will help you or speed up your work, right, overnight, so that no one knows about my existence. So my condition is, you start working on it. I will fast forward this whole construction. I will speed this construction up during the night, but provided you don't tell it to anyone. No one should know about my existence. This boon, this help is only for you, limited to you." The king agreed, and he ordered the construction of Steffel and the palace, which was instantly, overnight, grew up to become a bigger thing overnight. People were shocked, astonished. How is this happening? What is this happening? Has king employed some other army of people who are building it overnight? And the queen was astonished as well. And so she said, "You cannot hide things from me. I am your wife. You have to share things with me. So what is it? How is this happening? I have not seen such thing happening before anywhere else." The king said, "I am bound by an oath and I cannot share with you." But queen knew better, and eventually king had to share this information with her. And the moment he shared this information, the ghost disappeared, the work stopped, and this Steffel remain half finished. What you see is as is. And you will if you visit the village of Ranchi, you will see also half finished Steffel. A lot of people visited. But to say that a ghost has built this thing as a beautiful story, people may not believe it, but it definitely adds to the charm of the Steffel.
Yeah.
Let's come to another aspect, and the world famous Chand Steffel of Abaneri. Who doesn't know about it?
Yeah, wonderful.
And apparently it has been used in one of the Batman series Hollywood movies. I don't know about it. But this Steffel has 3,500 steps leading up to water on 3 sides. It is 13 floor deep, right? And it has a summer palace for the king. It was built by King Chanda of Pratyahara dynasty in 8th century. This is apparently 1200-year-old Steffel. Exquisite artwork, beautiful artwork. And it is, if you step down all the way to the water, usually it is said that if you go by one route, you will never be coming back the same route. Well, I have not tried it, but I would certainly love to do it one day. This is full body, and look at the exquisite carvings of water maidens on the wall of this Steffel. Khatu is absolutely unknown place. Why I know about it? One is my curiosity leading to explore my own state. Another reason is I have a family in this small village known as Khatu. There are 2 Khatus named after 2 sisters, Choti Khatu, Badi Khatu. That means older sister, younger sister. So 2 villages. And this Steffel is 150 feet deep, 5 floor down, and it has one of the most exquisite carvings that you would notice. And I wonder how rich my state would have been that these even small places where no one knows about it, no bus stops, there's no train station, have these beautiful water structures. What height, what richness water has given to us place, and what tribute people pay back to water, that they build these kind of temples for water.
Yeah.
Let's come to another globally famous Steffels, Rani Ji Ki Baudi, Queen's Stepwell in the Bundi district, which is a 100,000-year-old dynasty. And this stepwell is again, exquisitely carved, ornated with elephants, with different figurines, right? This stepwell has a kind of a sad story, but kind of, which is manifested into a beautiful way. This queen was the second queen of the king of Bundi around early 1700. Her name was Nathavati Ji. So the primary queen or the first queen did not have any child or heir to the throne. So the king married Nathavati Ji to have a child. Obviously, she bore him a child, a boy. But to her dismay, the child was taken away from her and given to the primary queen to be raised as the prince. This made Nathavati Ji very sad. I mean, who wouldn't, no one woman would want to lose her child. Well, instead of becoming sad and sullen forever or, committing something negative, she devoted herself to humanitarian job. And what else to do in humanitarian works not to make a water body. So she did build this beautiful water body, which we see now is a photograph of a year or two old photograph, right? She built this photograph. Now here I would like to also point that how this whole system of water body building happens in, our state. I would like to bring about a couple of snippets of my life in Rajasthan, how it has been built around. It is sad if you're passing through a lake. Everybody passing through a lake, they would if they excavate one handful of sand, that's a job well done, because if thousands of hands would excavate one sand, it will make lake deeper and it will be able to store more water. So this is no hard work, one handful sand, but if everybody is doing it, that's the voluminous job. Yeah. Another thing that you do is that if you get married, if you have a death in your family, if you have a childbirth, if you have anything happy occasion, you would contribute to making water body. So to whatever your level of offering is, if you are rich enough, if you contribute entire money to building the entire body, go for it. If you are not rich enough, you can contribute to the common fund. If you are not rich enough to contribute money, you can contribute your labor. But everything is directed towards making a water body. That's incredible. Here I would like to say something from in my language, which is about the respect of water. Ghee dhulya, mahara ki na jasi. Pani dhulyo, maro ji bade. If I spill ghee or butter, which is very costly, it doesn't bother me. But if I waste water, I will be very sad, or my heart will burn, literally. It is the level of respect that we have for water over here, that nothing comes before water. It is the jewel of our crown.
Right.
Now I'm going to share a small clip from British Council, the video of the same Rani Ji Ki Baudi taken in 1935. And we are happy to have this video clip over here. You can see the same step in its glory. And you would see women carrying, pitchers on top of their head, going all the way to the level of water.
How many steps are there in this? I've heard it is very, very deep.
250 steps.
250 up and down.
For, I think, 5 floors down, 200 feet deep.
And some people are carrying 2 pitchers.
2 pitchers, and this is the same thing that you see in the current photograph. It has not, it has been taken care of.
Very beautiful.
Bundi, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, living heritage.
Living heritage,
Yeah. Now, Neeraj bhai, it is really beautiful. I know the story of Baudis itself can make for a different topic, and which could be, we can discuss for hours and hours. I would want to ask you the most important last question of this this session, which is, tell us something about. I know it is difficult. Your walks are at least 2.5 or 3 hours long, but the most unique thing about the walks that you do, the water heritage walk that you do in Nahargarh and in Amer, I have heard there are some very unique features of that walk, especially the water buildings of Amer, and some very interesting, some very unique scientific and technological structures in Nahargarh water body which are there, share us something in brief, because now we are just on time. We have reached 1 hour's time. This is our last
Okay.
question. So
Okay.
you have to share us something unique about those two bodies of Rajasthan. I mean, two water bodies of Jaipur, where you are conducting your world famous heritage water walks. I know it's your entire walk is 2.5 hour long. You can't narrate entire thing here, but share some unique features of those two walks so that we can understand.
Absolutely. I would love to. Thank you so much, Qasim Bhai. I mean, yes, these are two walks that I have developed to share the culture of water with anybody and everybody. I've been doing this for 6, 7 years. These are storytelling walks. And first one is Nahargarh Water Walk, which is conducted on top of Nahargarh Walk, which is a fort which was designed to protect the newly built Jaipur city when the Kachawa dynasty moved from Amer to the newly built city of Jaipur in 1727. This fort was built in 1734, and it was meant to house army, because fort are meant to house army, which will eventually protect the city, or the king can during time of wars can climb up to the fort, and the natural terrain of the fort allows them to be protected. But these water systems, which are 300-year old, and to everybody's surprise, and to my surprise when I saw them, they are active and living. They have not been taken off.
If I'm not wrong, Neeraj bhai, I think these are the highest points of Jaipur, and so if you want to see the Jaipur's glory at the peak, I think these walks are reflecting the peak of the glory of Jaipur's water heritage and architectural marvels.
Absolutely, and it also so I'm not. I mean, obviously, I cannot share the word. I would want people to visit these walks, but two specific things that I would want to share over here is one, the love of the king for its people. Sawai Jai Singh too, who is known as the astronomical scientific and the king, who I think is a Renaissance man who changed the way things work, right? Who made an entirely city from scratch, Jaipur, which is like attracted.
1 second, I'll just answer Monica's question. Monica, I have myself documented Bauris of Chanderi. Yeah, not published as a book or something. There are some books on the monuments of Chanderi Bauris. They are one of the most beautiful set of Bauris in Madhya Pradesh. I have myself done documentation, though not published as a book so far. Time couldn't permit me.
Yeah, Monica, there are millions of bodies. I mean, I have a lot of photographs from my travels there, but this was about Rajasthan, so we stick to that. That's why no mention of bodies and MP. Yeah, coming back, one is that on the right you see a big tank. Now this can contain tremendous amount of water. Imagine containing water only from rainfall that is happening, building a system that is around 6 kilometers long in from mountains on top of a hill which is 700 feet above. It's a gigantic feat, right? The water that collected allows an army of couple of thousand people to sustain for 2 years, because in Rajasthan a drought can happen in years, so you have to always plan for 2 years. But the king didn't stop just here. So right, this tank is the city of Jaipur. The king had created a way so that the people of Jaipur, in times of scarcity, when there is a water scarcity in Jaipur, can climb up, come to this tank, and go back down. So for a king, people remain prime, and how this was working was something an eye opener. Another aspect is how technologies that have been developed across the world have kind of found an amalgamation in this particular water management system at Nahargarh. Aqueduct that was designed or innovated by Romans in first century in Europe somehow found its way in India when the king of Jaipur and the Mughal emperor in Delhi created an alliance. So the technology that came via Mughals to India was found its way and utility in Jaipur. So nobody knows about these aqueducts. There have not been documented, but there are two beautiful aqueducts in Jaipur in Nahargarh water management system.
Very good, very beautiful.
Another walk that
in Amer, please take us through the water buildings, or if you can show the photographs also, if possibly, if they're there.
Yeah, I was coming to that. Another walk that I conduct is within the world famous UNESCO World Heritage Site Amer Palace, which is the Amer Palace Water Walk. Both of these walks happened because of the government's imagination that we want to showcase our water buildings, and they invited me to develop these walks. Thanks to them. And so towards my left are you can see a couple of buildings going down in a cascade, right? These are water. The right below this image, which is now, there is a lake called Mautha, which is specifically designed to bring water all the way for 250 feet above to the palace. So these water buildings are designed in a way to carry water to a next level and water eventually into the palace. And then there is a Persian wheel, again a technology which is found many usage in Spain, in Iran, which is over here, Persian wheel, which is installed inside the palace to fetch water up, and then this water flows into the drain pipes made of brass that are embedded into the building structure through and distribute water throughout the palace, which is a wonderful kind of a medieval yet modern way of water management for a palace which has queen and king living over here, but which also has a couple of hundred other people living over here to meet the need of these people living 400 feet above ground level. So these walks.
Just tell me how was the water? So the lake, the big lake is there. That Kesar Kyari is there. So you're driving just next to the Kesar Kyari, the big lake is there. Water is
yes,
full.
There is a lake. Yes. As you come from Delhi, or anybody comes from Delhi towards Jaipur, they will cross Amer, and when you see it is the lake Mautha.
So the water is pulled through these
using the pulley and draught animal. So every building has a intermittent tank storage capacity, or which will store water intermittently, and then it will lift it to next level, and then next level, and then next level, and this job will be done 24/7 without fail. So there is a dedicated army of people working to bring water up.
Okay. So thank you very much, Niyat bhai. I mean, the story of water is big. We have been I think, very well in terms of times. It's 1 hour 8 minutes. Our time is up. Yeah. If you want to say anything,
I would want to leave everybody with a video of Nahargarh water channels to showcase that this is still living. Right?
Yeah. So before you share that, I would like to request at the back our technical director, Mr. Rehan, Dr. Rehan Saab, if anybody has asked any question, we could not see those questions. If anybody has asked any question, you can ask, and then we will tell us how. So there is a question from Mr. Ashok Mathur Saab from Old Delhi. Tell us how stagnant water was kept potable. So now let me tell you something very interesting about Ashok Mathur Saab. Whenever I miss Rajasthan, I go to his Haveli. He has got a small, beautiful Haveli in the Old Delhi. So whenever I feel like going to Rajasthan, I go to his Haveli, and we have chai and pani. And Mathur Sahib is a wonderful person, very fond of art and culture.
Oh, fantastic!
So now he's asking question: how was the water kept, safe from being stagnant and unusable?
See, water will eventually become stagnant, but there the withdrawal is tremendous. It's not that there's a surplus water, right? When you have under tanks, the lining inside is done in such a way that water remains disinfectant, so it never becomes stagnant. It will not be, if it is not exposed to sunlight, there will be no biological activity on the water. But to open air, and a lot of lakes and ponds and stepwells are connected to subterranean aquifer. So water is always, moving around. Top layer becomes hot and it goes out, and then there's always a current happening in the water, so it always keeps rotating and keep becoming fresh. In other bodies which are artificial bodies, the way is to top layer will, if it is exposed to sunlight, will develop a kind of algae, but beneath it has an algae cover on it. Beneath it, the water will remain fresh.
Yeah, and there's one question from Mr. Vivek Jindgar. Were similar techniques used in forts like Golconda?
I don't know about it. I would appreciate if those who are on the talk, if they know anything about it, and I'll be happy to answer whenever I visit Golconda. But I assume this will be similar if they have because what transfer of technology is started to happen then.
Yeah. Any other question, Rehan bhai, or anybody in the audience? Anybody wants to ask any question? So now, Niyat bhai, you can show that photograph or video of water being collected live during the rains.
Right. Thank you, Qasim bhai. And this is a very happy moment for us, for me personally. When I was able to see water flowing in the channels and where I conduct walk, this is actually a living heritage.
Yeah.
And you will notice water flowing in the channels, right?
Yeah.
Going, and this event is happening whether Corona is in the world or no. For last 300 years, this will continue to happen. The God will keep giving us water. The systems designed by our ancestors will continue to give us water. Whether we appreciate them the way we used to do or not, it doesn't matter. The water will keep coming to us.
Wonderful, wonderful. So water is life, and the force of life must continue. Thank you very much
Absolutely.
for joining us and sharing the beautiful stories and snippets from the water life of Rajasthan. I would also like to to place my special thanks to Dr. Rehan Asad Saab for giving us this platform to share the stories of water of Rajasthan and all his technical support at the back of this broadcast. So thank you everybody who joined. Thank you Ashok Saab. Thank you Vivek and many other people who would have joined. I couldn't see because the system doesn't permit us. And we would end our walk here. Hopefully we'll come back with some more interesting stories on something new. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.